Dear beloved Creator of all that is, Creator of all that is within, residing within each of us is that part of you as we are co-creators of our reality. And we acknowledge and give gratitude for our increasing awareness of this truth. In acknowledging, we ask that this awareness permeate all that we do in all our waking moments, in your service. In so doing, we are here to acknowledge service to other rather than service to self. We choose to no longer rely, depend, nor vacate to the creation the ogres want from us in their programming and their darkness. Rather, now awakened, we recognize and act according to the beneficent, wondrous co-creators as you intended. And we are here to acknowledge our actions in that service to other always contains the prime directive of beneficent service for all that is goodly and godly. By creating cohesion and heartful resonance with one another in this higher purpose, and from our higher selves, we claim our sovereignty as the beautiful mind and body and spirit beings created by you in your image. And in so doing, we choose to use this lifetime to revindicate, restore, and refresh our common laws and take back our responsibilities of self-governance and self-responsibility so gradually lost so long ago. We gather here then, ready and willing to do and act, well armed with understanding and standing freely as a force of your grace and divine love as our shield. And so it is.
And so it is. Thank you, Charlie. My name's Ron Vroman. I'm the whole white man talking head at the Oregon Statewide Jural Assembly. There seems to be some confusion. And I've talked about this before. I sent out an email today and I got some answers back with conflicting opinions. So let's just look at what we're talking about and we'll read what the words mean. And then we'll have a good decision instead of just thinking about it or talking about it or not having any supporting evidence. I'm going to be using this is a very old and very big encyclopedia dictionary. Look how thick it is. I'm going to be using this. And Black's Law Sixth. And that issue is, do you expatriate or do you repudiate? Now, from what I understand, I haven't talked to David Straight about this, but from what I understand, David Straight says you repudiate your United States citizenship and become a state national. And that's how you get away from the incorporated governance of the United States and being one of their citizens and them having jurisdiction over you. And I say that's wrong. You don't repudiate and you don't go from being a U.S. citizen to being a state national. That's wrong. Now, I'm going to prove with supporting evidence what I say. First, in the big encyclopedia dictionary, we'll take expatriate, EXP. And that's in the Webster's Dictionary. It was all about country and leaving one country for another. And now we'll go to expatriate in Black's Law. Now, where in the hell is that? Okay. They have expatriation, the voluntary act of abandoning or renouncing one country and becoming the citizen or subject of another. Okay. So Webster's and Black's both agree expatriate is what you do when you're leaving a country. So I want to show this. Most people have a birth certificate. It's all gold leaf and big and stamped and proper, and it makes you a U.S. citizen. Your mommy didn't want to do it to you and she didn't know, but they defrauded you with a one-sided contract into being a U.S. citizen. Well, my birth certificate is handwritten. It's not printed out by anybody. It's made out by people. They signed it. Doctors and witnesses and my mom and dad attested to my birth. They didn't give me away as a ship berthed in dock or any other thing. They registered my birth, plain and simple. So that's who I am according to their paper. So now let's take a look at repudiate. Go over here to repudiate. Repudiation, the act of repudiating state or condition to be repudiated, rejection, refusal on the part of a government to pay a debt. Repudiation. That's everything that they have in Webster's under repudiation. It's about debt. And that's a contract with the government. So now we'll come over to repudiation in Black's Law. Repudiation, Black's has got a whole lot more on it. Repudiation, rejection, disclaimer, or renunciation of a contract. Oh, I forget and don't show my pretty face to the camera. That was a joke. Repudiation, rejection, disclaimer, or renunciation of a contract before performance is due that does not operate as an anticipatory breach unless the promise elects to treat the rejection as a breach and bridge a suit for damages. Rejection or refusal of an offered or available right or privilege or of a duty or relation, the act of a buyer or seller rejecting a contract of sale either partially or totally. Then it goes on to repudiation of a contract means refusal to perform duty or obligation owed to the other party. And it goes on about Supreme Court decisions on that. Repudiation of a contract is in nature of anticipatory breach of performance. So repudiation is for contract, and expatriation is for country. So we're talking about status, changing your status from being a U.S. citizen, chattel, a piece of property of the U.S. Inc. by fraud, but judges, courts, and juries find people guilty of that and put them in prison because they're not men or women, because none of these courts have the authority to put a man or a woman in jail. They only have authority over U.S. citizens. So now let's take a look at, you move from being a U.S. citizen to being a state national, as Anna or David Straight says. So you move from being the chattel of the United States Inc. to being a state national, where you give jurisdiction to the state. And I've done a show on that, and you can look it up. If you give jurisdiction to the state as a state national, well, then you're no longer a free man or woman on the land. You're a state national. So then we expatriate from the United States as a citizen to a sovereign man or woman on the land of Oregon without ruler or without subject. That's what we do. And we do it with our name on a document, living testimony in the form of an affidavit of truth, signed in red, print your name in blue, date it in blue, and a red thumbprint on it. And you get 2 men or women that are also Oregonians or whatever your state is. And they do the same thing. And now you have the strongest document known, living testimony with 2 witnesses, saying that you are not a U.S. citizen, you're an Oregonian, you're a man or a woman on the land and soil of Oregon. That's expatriation. We just looked it up. It's not a secret. You expatriate from a country to another country, and we choose Oregon, not the state of Oregon, or not to a government, but to Oregon as a sovereign man or woman. That's expatriation. Now, if you want, you can expatriate from the status of a sovereign to being a U.S. citizen. Charlie and I did that recently, and we went down and registered. Actually, we did it all by mail. Registered as U.S. citizens so we can vote in the bogus election on Oregon. But that's the current rules that we're working under. And if you want to vote at all, you have to vote as a U.S. citizen. So we expatriate from being a sovereign to being a U.S. citizen. It's our choice. So we did that. And as soon as we don't want to be a U.S. citizen, pardon me, anymore, we just expatriate back. Or we could expatriate to Portugal if we wanted, but they don't have a constitution, so that wouldn't be too cool. So what we're looking at is word art. and contracts and status. And we say that the status of a man or woman with unalienable rights is the highest status that there is. They're given by God. And David Straight says you want to repudiate the contract with the United States Inc. and go into a contract giving jurisdiction as a state national to the state. That would be state of Oregon on Oregon. I would not give jurisdiction to Kate Brown's oligarchy out of Salem, period. If you want to, go right ahead. That's what a state national does. They give jurisdiction to the state. So let's take a look at contracts. The contracts that they put you in with the US Inc. There's a contract with the post office. The post office is constitutional. They're to provide post offices and post roads. That's their job. Doesn't say anything about free home delivery or free rural delivery. It says post office and post roads. If you want your mail, go to the post office and get it. And don't buy a post office box. That puts you into contract with the post office. When you look at the post office, you'll find that there's a .com and there's a .org. There's two different organizations there. Which one are you going to do business with? Now, some people say, well, you use in care of Ron Vroman in care of 503 Spokane Street. All right. But if you take one letter and it's not addressed to in care of, you're right back into contract with the post office. What happens to all military is, and I'll state me, Anna said you only thought you were discharged. They didn't discharge you. They just transferred you to an inactive reserve. No, no, no. Yeah, we'll check it out. So I checked it out and she was absolutely right. My DD 214 says honorable in big type. Yep. Underneath it, it says I served honorable. Not that I had an honorable discharge. They transferred me to a reserve squadron. It took 3 years to get that cleaned up. I dealt with Bupers in Millington, Tennessee, and I dealt with Washington, D.C. and St. Louis, and people lied and obfuscated, and eventually I got a letter saying, okay, you're discharged. They had me for 60 years in a contract with them in an inactive reserve. I didn't know it, but I acquiesced to it. Same thing. So, how many other contracts can they get you with? Driver's license, 1040 with the IRS. Is your business incorporated? Is it an LLC? Those are all contracts with. Now, I've talked about this before, but the city of Portland is a de facto subdivision of the county of Multnomah, which is a de facto subdivision of the state of Oregon, which is a de facto subdivision of the United States Inc., and that is not a constitutional Republican form of government. So you change from being a U.S. citizen into being a state national which is a subdivision of the United States. So you become a state national to the state of Oregon or any other state. And that's a subdivision of the US Inc. So what the hell did you do when you repudiated the United States citizenship? You took out citizenship as a state national and gave jurisdiction to Oregon. And that's a subdivision of where you just left. Now, I showed you actual evidence of what those words mean. And we speak colloquial Oregonian here, pretty close to what we had in the book. So the deal is these people are lying to you, just like lots of the others lie to you. And if you buy it, then you got it. And if you want to be a state national, go ahead. You want to be a state citizen, go ahead. You want to be a U.S. citizen, you want to be U.S. national, you want to be a peaceful inhabitant or a belligerent inhabitant, or you want to be a registered or unregistered foreign agent, you can be all of those. There's status that you can enter into. I choose to be a man with all my unalienable rights granted by God, a sovereign, on Oregon. And from that jurisdiction, I can expatriate to any other jurisdiction that I want for as long as I want, and then back to my sovereign status. It's my decision. So, have I covered all this stuff? I did this all before and forgot to press the record button. We learned that we could, if there was two of us, get on Skype and record by pressing a button. And when William got here, he could edit it and take care of it. And went through the whole thing. And I got two people that said you did a good job. I hope this one is as good as the last one. And if I left out anything, I'm sorry. Oh, here comes Brandon.
Hey,
What
so you did almost as good of a job as last time.
what?
You did almost as good of a job as you did last time.
Oh, okay. I got a B plus.
Yes.
All right. Thank you.
I do have to ask though, just to confirm here. So, from what you've said and talked about, it sounds like from the very beginning, at the time of birth, there's been a fraud that's occurred against us. Is that correct?
Yeah. No,
Okay.
not against me. You saw my birth certificate. No fraud against me from birth.
All right, but yeah, at a certain point on.
Yep.
And the government is the one that's responsible for this fraud. Is that right?
No, it's the incorporated governance. We haven't had government since 1861 federally.
Okay. So who's held accountable for this fraud that's been placed on these people?
Did you ask how we make them accountable for the fraud?
Sure. Yes.
Well, we think we do it one step at a time from the very beginning and build our case with all our supporting evidence that we've done for the last 4 years now, this month. And we moved the case one step at a time from where we were to where we are now. And where we are now is we're all free men and women on Oregon. that want to be. And they know how to get there. They get there with a living testimony in the form of an affidavit of truth with 2 witnesses. Red signature, blueprinted name and date, and red thumbprint. And that's it. There's no stronger document. So those men and women on Oregon are doing it with grand jury. And constitutionally, the grand jury, a court's order or a judge's warrant, and firsthand knowledge of breaking the law, which is hurting a person or damaging their property, is the only way you can lose your sovereign jurisdiction. So if you don't do any of those, and you got to be careful. I was arrested, tried, and did 20 days in county jail, and they never had a warrant. The warrant they showed me was bogus. And when I got out of jail and I got off parole, I said, okay, let's see the warrant that you arrested me on. Oh, well, we don't have it. Oh, you don't have the original charging document. So that was a bogus arrest. That was a bogus 20 days. I took that to risk management and they said, no, we decline. Be careful. Be careful. But that's what we're doing. And we're calling the election to trial on the 26th. Are you going to be back in town by then, Brandon?
Yeah.
Excellent. Okay. So I think I'm done. I yield.
They do not want to let go of this. They do not intend on losing here. And we do not intend giving it back to them.
And then the bullets started flying. Then he jumps out of the car. And he's got both his hands up. And he got out of the car, and he had his hands in the air. He's like, just shoot me then. This is what you want, just shoot me. And they did. They shot him dead. With his hands in the air, and I saw it. I swear to God. He was just walking with his hands in the air. And they shot him. And they shot him dead, and then after he was down on the ground, they shot him 3 more times.